Cool. Welcome to the first playoff edition of Fantasy Happy Hour. First video here will be for the games Saturday and Saturday slate. We got three exciting ones. Um, Not really sure if I like this one more than Sundays, but it'll be. I think both days will be exciting now that we got some playoff action. So yeah, we'll just do it like the typical three-game slate and go through some of our picks. Um, Tarin, you want to start it off here with quarterback?
Oh, it's an interesting week, especially Saturday. Like, there's such a difference in the two slates that you actually kind of get to play very differently. I find Sunday's got all the running backs and Saturday's got all the wide receivers. So there's like a big gap in the 2 days. But starting at QB, I think you go to a guy who's just been on fire, and that's Tom Brady. Last 3 weeks, he's thrown for 350 or more. I think a total of 10 touchdowns. He might have lost Mike Evans. I don't know that he was getting an MRI today. I'm not certain the news there. But even when he was out, he looked at AB and Godwin. They both had 140 and two touchdowns each there last week. So I think those two guys are a complete lock with him. His O-line's playing well. This is a decent D now with Milano back in the linebacker core. So Washington's a really good D line. I mixed my two up, but they have a really good D line, and which tends to lead to more passing. So this game, I think, will be more pass heavy from the Buccaneers side of the ball. I think Allen will be the highest owned guy, so I'm guessing Brady comes in second highest. So you're looking to kind of hedge that a little bit. But I think this game's also the late night hammer. So if you want to stack it late, you can kind of play around with the early guys and then switch over to all the guys you want in this last game. But yeah, I lean Brady. One note, I put kind of an honorable mention if Jared Goff is out, possibly playing John Wolford. Just because he's so cheap, he'll open up the board to everybody else. And he does rush. He rushed for 50 yards last week. It sounds like there's a good chance he might play. So look to that. But do you have a quarterback? You going to Josh Allen?
I thought about going to Josh Allen, but no, I'm pulling the same thing we did last week, and I have TB12. Um, I mean, you just look at the last week alone too. 26 completions, 4 TDs, 399 yards, just absolutely insane. And I mean, Tom Brady, he already knows how to get it done when he need to get it done. Um, will he be the best QB of the day? I don't really know. But I think he'll be definitely probably, yeah, like you're saying, second highest own. Uh, that's why I was kind of trying to avoid Josh Allen. I just think that one is going to be crazy. But I mean, this one, you have to pick someone who you think is going to get you the big points, because if you miss out on it, you're hooped probably. So that's why I went with Tom Brady there. Um, I'll move into my running back though. I've picked this guy a few times. I'm going to Jonathan Taylor. Um, I just think this one's also one of the higher scoring games this weekend. He's been hot the past couple of weeks as well. Last week, 253 yards on 30 rush attempts, 2 TDs, and 41 fantasy points. The week before, he was great as well. But yeah, I know the Bills are going to put up a lot of points, and if the Colts are going to have to keep up, I'm hedging that JT's the guy that'll get it done. So, what are you thinking for your running back there, Tarin?
It's kind of funny because the one Jonathan Taylor put up his best Derrick Henry performance there last week. Unbelievable game for the Colts. They lean on the run because their offensive line's the best part of that whole offense. And I just think you got a different animal with the Bills' run D now with Matt Milano. So my note is Naheem Hines over Jonathan Taylor is my pick. I would rather play Naheem Hines in this game. Total's 52, and we know Josh Allen's going to put points up. So this is going to be a chase game, in my opinion, for the Colts. If they keep it tight, it'll probably be off some sort of pick six or some sort of early defensive play. I think other than that, this is going to have to go high scoring, and I just don't see it going through Jonathan Taylor this time. I think Milano and Trayman Edmonds in the linebacker core are kind of playing really well in the last few weeks. They've shut down the run a lot better than they were earlier in the season. So I think that leans to passing more with Naheem Hines. And I just think whenever the Colts perform, it's through their running back, whichever one performs. It tends to be Hines when Taylor's out, or it'll be Taylor when they're dominating. So I think either running back here is a good pick. I did mention Cam Akers if Wolford's playing as well. I think Wolford's going to hand the ball off more. And if you play off that atmosphere where you get a guy that's a finance guy to come in and play quarterback first round of the playoffs against Russell Wilson. So, lean on the running game there. But bouncing over to wide receiver, I think this is a 4 wide receiver slate. I think this is some of the best wide receivers in the playoffs early here for DFS purposes. But I tried to pick someone a little different to get away from the Bills. Like Diggs is going to be the highest owned. So I went back to John Brown, who's came back last week, caught 4 passes for 72 yards and a touchdown in week 17. I think they tried to play him in that game just to get him kind of rolling again and kind of feeling the ball before the playoffs started. And I know Cole Beasley's still questionable, so watch that news. But if those 3 are together, John Brown tends to be number 2 over Beasley. And so I think he's a great play. Gets you away from Diggs because Diggs is going to have probably a little bit of coverage from my old Minnesota Vikings, Xavier Rhodes, a little bit of shadow coverage too. I think Diggs beats that, but I just think he's going to go way over owned in this. And then I love Antonio Brown and Godwin. I think you could play either of those 2 guys, but I'll pass it over to you for the wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew you were going to touch on this a little bit more. But I'm pairing it up with TB and I was going Antonio Brown. Good week last week. Again, good week the week before too. 11 receptions, 2 TDs. My thoughts were that if he's finally, done with all his shenanigans and ready to play like a full season next year, he's really going to want to play big in the playoffs because then he'll hopefully get, a big contract or someone will actually want to sign him, not halfway through a season. So I just kind of I'm going on that he's finally ready and he's going to finally hopefully redeem his career here and get it going. And what a better person to do it than do it with Tom Brady and Tampa Bay. So that was my thoughts on the wide receiver pairing there. But I'll move on to my tight end here. I'm really going. I went into the depths of the stats books for these picks. I was doing a little bit more research this week, but I'm going over to Jacob Hollister in Seattle. So I was looking at the options there, and Russell Wilson has so many weapons, and in the playoffs, they're going to be covered. If both teams are playing their best football, there's going to be, Metcalf and Lockett are going to be very difficult to probably hit. But Hollister's had an average of 5 targets over December. He's had 2 TDs and a super cheap option that if he picks up a TD, you're probably laughing if the rest of your guys are firing. So that was my thoughts on tight end here. Where are you going on tight end, Tarin?
And funny, we both dove to the depths here. I was looking for some value somewhere, and this was the place. I went to a Seattle tight end, but I didn't go to where you went. I went to actually Greg Olsen. I do expect him to play and be back. He's been on IR for 5 weeks. They brought him back in week 16 for, I think, 12 plays, and then he sat him last week because he had a flare-up. And everybody believes that they sat him so that he'd be ready for this game because they knew they were making the playoffs. So, he was kind of, that third option when he was around and healthy. You still have the Lockett, you still have DK Metcalf, who could beat this defense. This is a very good defense, especially in the secondary. So this is a tough matchup to go to Lockett or Metcalf, although Metcalf has beat Jalen Ramsey before. But I do think Greg Olsen's kind of a sneaky. He's min-priced. He's 2,500. And if he's 2,500 and playing full, he's like their number 1 tight end at 2,500. So to me, you can try that or try Hollister. You can try any of these guys. Russ tends to throw a touchdown to a tight end. And if you get it right, you get it right. That's kind of how it works. But, the top 2 tight ends are going to be the popular guys. They're by far the best in this, Thomas and Gronk. It's quite a gap between those 2 and the rest of the field. So I think everybody's going to go to, Thomas or Gronk. I prefer Thomas. He's been a target monster for Washington lately. But if you go to the defense, I just kind of picked a game here because I think this Rams-Seahawks game is going to be defensive. I don't see a high-scoring game here. Rams have been the best defense by far this season, I think, and especially in fantasy. They've put up, 17, 12, 17, 20, I think 20 last week against, I forget who they played, but they dominated Cardinals against the CFL quarterback Streveler, and they got to play. So that was pretty lucky for them. But a 20-point game last week. The Seahawks have also been playing great D lately. They've been kind of leaning on it because Russ hasn't been chucking much, which is I think either play in that game. You could go to Bucks or Bills. I think those would be popular just in the game they expect to win. But I think points will come more from the Rams and Seahawks defense here. But what do you think on D?
Yeah, I'm in the same mindset as you. I picked the Seahawks. My thoughts were, I just thought it'll be the safer bet. Obviously, if Wolford is playing and he has a good game, well, I mean, great. But I think if you're gonna, go off based off stats and performance, you're probably gonna lean a little bit to the Seahawks. That pick does change though. If Goff's back in, then I'd probably lean the other way. Um, but going off what I'm going now, it's Seattle, and it's again, it's just a toss up. At the end of the day, I think either or will be good. But yeah, this to me, this is like what you said, the lowest scoring game. So um, yeah, that'll wrap up our first video here for the Saturday games. And if you liked it, well, the Sunday one's out too, so make sure you check that one out. And then if not, we'll see you guys next week for the next round. And yeah, give us a like, maybe even a subscribe. Okay. I don't know.